Hi, I'm Josh, and this is my Canadian ReadEHthon TBR. So I'm trying to figure out how to do this because I have 8 books that I want to talk about, but I don't know if I should just go through the prompts and then announce them, or just go through the books. Actually, let's just go through the prompts and I'll describe the books as we get to them. The first book, a book by an Indigenous author. The first one is a mixed media magical realism story by Tanya Tagak, and it is Split Tooth. I don't know enough about this. I just know I think it's about Indigenous culture, or is somehow tied to that. The next one, though, is a sequel to a book in a trilogy called Trickster Drift by Eden Robinson, also an Indigenous author. This book is about a young boy who finds that he has this connection to this Indigenous mythological creature. I found the first book to be really good, really well done. It was really well written, really easy to read, really enjoyable, but also really interesting exploration of a day in the life for an Indigenous person, and also just the exploration of Indigenous mythology. From a Canadian perspective, I think the first book was a great candidate for Canada Reads, which is how I originally came across it, because it is such a natural story that I think is very accessible, but it still explores themes that are common to Indigenous people, but also exposes Canadians to Indigenous mythology, which I feel like it's really important that people have a good understanding of the mythology of their homeland, of the people who came before them, the people who were here first. I mean, a story about a loving relationship. That could be any of these. I don't know. I'm hoping one of these books or stories that I read, I'll be able to retrofit it to that. But right now, I don't know enough about these to say which one fits that. A book by a Canadian publisher, and honestly, I'm not sure what you consider a Canadian publisher. Does it have to be unique only to Canada, or would it work as HarperCollins Canada, or Penguin Canada, or Vintage Canada, which I'm not sure if Vintage is unique to Canada or not, but it says Vintage Canada, so I'm going to count that. Nature on the cover. You could count this as nature as well, but there's another one. Essex County, which is I think coming of age story. It's like a historical fiction graphic novel series. It's very thick, by Jeff Lemire, set in Ontario, and that's all I know. I bought this because it was another Canada Reads winner, and I wanted to read more Canada Reads, which I have a whole video where I talk about Canada Reads. I also talk about it in the Reading Rush. If you haven't heard of the Canada Reads candidates, I highly recommend you look them up because they were all fantastic reads for this readathon, and no one's talking about them on BookTube outside of people who were talking about Canada Reads. These books are amazing in their own right, and highly recommend. Okay, sorry, where was I? Set in a province or a territory you haven't been to. And this is one that I don't remember which one. I know one of these is set a place I haven't been to. I've been to Ontario and to British Columbia. I want to say that the troop is set somewhere further north. I'm not sure. Okay, Google, where is Warren University?
Located in Thunder Bay, Ontario.
The Book of Black People. I don't feel comfortable saying this. I know it's not derogatory, but I just would rather just say that. By Lawrence Hill. It is a story about a slave woman who was brought to America and then later moved to Nova Scotia, where I haven't been. This is it. This is it. This author won Canada Reads, I think twice now. I'm not sure if this one won. It did. It did win Canada Reads. A book, The Illegal, also won, which I was going to read The Illegal originally, but then I found this and I thought, this ticks more boxes. It explores a history of Black people in Canada, as well as being a book by a Black author. And it's also, I think, would be safe to consider anti-racism in themes, as opposed to The Illegal, which is an immigrant story, not about Black people, I think. So it's quite slightly different. Next is a debut author, and for that we can go back to Split Tooth, an LGBTQIA or queer story. Unfortunately, I don't have any queer stories here that I know of. I'm hoping maybe one of these will have queer themes that I can tack on to afterwards, but right now none of these meet that classification. That's not to say I don't have queer books I want to read this month. Anti-racism literature. Again, the Book of Black People, a Canadian children's book. I don't have that unless you consider YA, and actually it's debatable if this is YA. I need to check. Honestly, if this is YA, I like it a lot because I see how it could be seen as YA, because it is focused on a young adult character, but it has a lot of adult themes, and it's told in a way that I think is definitely accessible to adults as well. Pretty sure if you go on Goodreads, you'll see that as young adult. So this counts as a children's book. I know that's stretching it, but I'm counting it. Set in a province or a territory you have been to. And again, Essex County. But another one, Bunny, also set in Ontario, a horror story by Mona Awad. And this is like a weird academic cult-like book. I don't know what to expect, but Jesus Christ, everything I hear about this makes me want to praise this book. I want to worship this, and I haven't even read it yet. So yes, I have high expectations, but I trust it. I trust Mona Awad to live up to those expectations. An immigrant refugee story. For this one, I'm going to be using this. Yes, it is forced immigration, but it is still an immigration story. A Canadian Book Award nominee, which this is the winner, therefore it was a nominee, and I'm pretty sure there were other ones here too, but that's the first one I think of. It was for Canada Reads. Read on the cover, All the Wrong Todays, a novel by Ilan Masria, and this is a time travel story. I'm not entirely sure if it's Groundhog type story or something else, but honestly, I want to read this guy like time travel. Let's see, Sean Carroll says, time travel bends our minds, and in the right hands, it can tickle our funny bones. All Our Wrong Turns is a twisty, provocative, creative tale, an extremely enjoyable way to get yourself thinking about a world in ways that can be very different. I say Sean Carroll because he wrote that book that I've been praising for so long this year. A book by a Black author, here. Something that's not a novel, and for this, we're going to go with Essex County. However, that is the only book that's on an audio, and I don't know how to gauge my ability to get through this thick of a graphic novel during this ReadEHthon, so it will probably be the first to go in this list of 8. But luckily I have here this novella, The Penelopiad by Margaret Atwood, a story that I've wanted to read for a while. It says use, which hence the tabs. I haven't put them in there, but I don't care about them. But yeah, this is what I want to read. Something that's not a novel. I just said that. Did I mention The Troop? The Troop has nature on the cover. I know I'm doing excessive here, but this is just because these are books I want to read, and the ReadEHthon is a great motivation to do that. And since I just had such a really stressful July, I'm ready to dedicate like a full week of just going binge reading a shit ton. And honestly, it's something to the world if I don't finish these. I have other books to read this month if I don't finish them. That said, there were a few books here that I really want to get to this month, mostly because I want to read these horror books. If I don't get to them, I'll make sure I get to them this month. The others I may be willing to postpone. The way I'm going to be doing this is using a quantum number generator. Again, Sean Carroll, quantum number generators. When you use a quantum number generator, it means every possible outcome is what happens. There was a version of us that will come into existence to make that happen. The problem is that not every choice we make has infinite number of outcomes. Our choices are not quantum, but when you make a choice from a quantum number generator, they become quantum, and that is how you make yourself diverge into different paths. I'm happy to be treating this ReadEHthon as one of the many ways in which my life diverges in the quantum realm. So I'm excited, and I get to talk more about quantumness because I love talking about that. But I think that's everything. I've talked about all the books I want to read. 8 books. Again, I know it's a lot. The way I figure is there are a few books here that should take me at least an entire day of being focused reading. The rest are fairly short and should be able to get through in like half a day. And it's on those days that I'm hoping to get to Essex County. So thank you for listening to my rambles. Thank you for listening to the books I'm going to read. Let me know what you think about these books. And I want to mention again, Canada Reads. You know what? We're going to do this here. I know I'm not Canadian, so I wouldn't go out of my way to promote Canada books in general, because I think most of the books that I know about have been mentioned, except for the Canada Reads books of this year. First, let's mention the first book, which is not Trickster Drift. It's just Son of a Trickster. Highly recommend. A really fun, quick read. It's really great. By Eden Robinson. Eden Robinson is a delight. Her writing style is amazing. It's really funny at times and just really well written. The next one is Small Game Hunting by Megan Gail Coles. This does have queer themes, and it's set in Newfoundland. I always get this confused, but this explores so many different themes, from sexism to gaslighting, patriarchy, to racism, to issues related to Indigenous people. And on top of that, it's like, if you like a challenge, if you want to read a book that is like a literary work of masterpiece, this is probably the way to go. I mean, it is not an easy read. This will probably be my lowest rated book on Canada Reads. And that's less to do with the quality of the work so much as my enjoyment. It plays a role in how I rate books. And my enjoyment for this wasn't to the extreme. There are things about that I did love, just because the dialect is very, very much set in the region of Newfoundland. So storytelling is all told in the span of one day, and it's in a way that is clearly crafted in just a really masterful way, but it's also a way that is, for me, made a less enjoyable book, if still immensely satisfying. Does that make sense? Is that fair? I know I have my own way of rating books. The other 3 books. There's one that was radicalized, which it was fine. From the Ashes by Jesse Thistle, a Indigenous memoir, amazing. And then there is We've Always Been Here, another memoir by a Pakistani immigrant who is queer. It's about her story as a queer Muslim Pakistani immigrant. Like, how many prompts is that? Also, it was really good. Like, it didn't break the mold, but it was a really moving story, and it was really well told in a very traditional way. Highly recommend that book. It's actually would satisfy so many prompts. Actually, it won Canada Reads. I forget. Yeah, it's the one that won. Not the one I would have picked, or the second one, but maybe the third. Those are my 4 books that I would recommend outside of what I'm reading. But again, thank you for watching. Let me know what you're reading. Let me know if you're reading any of these, if you have read any of these, what you think about these, what I should expect going into these, or if there are books you think I should prioritize. Like, I'm willing to be flexible in how I deal with the quantum number generator, but it's important that we obey the laws of the quantum number generator. It is the law of the land. Praise be to the quantum number generator. Have a great day and stay safe.